Hello, I thought I would follow up on the video that I last posted about ways that I have found are really helping me to overcome this feeling of not being good enough, feeling inferior, feeling like an imposter, and any moment someone's gonna blow my cover. It's been a process. I'm still very much in the process of unlearning and gathering evidence that other ways are possible, which is uncomfortable and scary and unfamiliar. So you want to revert back to familiar patterns, but you know that they really don't serve you. Anyway, yeah, so I thought I'd touch on that. It has been a super hectic week. I am so exhausted. It's Friday and spring break starts now. Well, not really. I still have an assignment due, but hey, we're almost there. So I don't know, I might be a little bit scattered. I don't know that my brain has the capacity after all these exams and assignments to formulate good sentences, but I hope to make as much sense as possible. I just want to give a little bit of background here because it's really how this happened. I stumbled on these different strategies really just by accident. I was on my med-surg rotation. It was really, really, really cold out, winter storm. Haven't had that kind of weather in a long time. And there were several frostbite patients on our unit. I got to speak to one of them. He was the patient that I was kind of assigned to. And I just felt so thankful to have had that experience because as heartbreaking as it was, it opened the door for so many things for me. And I just want to acknowledge that even though I got something like positive out of it, it must be an awfully challenging thing to go through for the patient and his family. So I very much want to acknowledge that first and foremost. He was only Spanish speaking, and I just so happened to be taking his vitals when the wound care nurse came. The wound care nurse told me that the burns surgical team and rest of the doctors were basically going to be rounding and explaining to him what was going to happen. So he needed a translator, and I find that often even translators, I don't know, sometimes things can just get lost in translation literally, and they generally do it over the phone, which is so helpful and an amazing resource, but it also, you know, it has its limitations in that you can't really get the physical experience of body language and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I was really glad that I was there because I got to take in both sides, the patient and the medical team. And so when everybody left, the patient didn't really know what was happening, even though on the phone he was like, okay, yeah, I understand. And I was very touched by the wound care nurse because he didn't speak Spanish really, but he was really making an effort. And I feel like that's the kind of thing that really makes a difference. He barely conjugated any verbs correctly, but it was so commendable because he would not stop trying. Like, he just continued, despite me being there, despite me being able to translate, he just gave it his best effort. And I think, you know, the patient was really appreciative of that. And it was just so sweet. Like, once he left, he thanked me for being there and helping to translate, but I was like, no, like, you did really great. That was awesome. And he was like, I guess Duolingo is paying off. So that, looking back, was the first little seed that was planted. A few weeks go by, maybe a couple of weeks, and there was another storm coming, a big storm. And I was reflecting on this experience of there being several preventable frostbite injuries on our unit, and I thought, I need to do something about it. I don't really think that I can make a huge impact, but there are things that I can maybe do. And I thought about creating a flyer in Spanish and in English to just post around my neighborhood and hope that it might help someone, especially people who are working outdoors, people who might have already compromised feeling in their fingers and toes and ears, like, the most vulnerable areas to frostbite. And my sister was just so incredibly wonderful, and she has all these connections in healthcare. She sent it out to so many people, and it really just felt like such a meaningful thing to do with her. She also helped me create the flyers, and it was just so beautiful. Unfortunately, she wasn't feeling so well, so I went out by myself to start posting the flyers. I really struggled because it was so cold. My fingers were freezing. Trying to tape and cut and all the things were so difficult with just one person because the wind was coming and it was already snowing, and it was just a lot. And I had an exam, I think either the next day or 2 days later, and I was really behind on studying, so it was quite a stressful situation, but I knew in my heart that this was something that I wanted to do and I needed to do, because if it could help one single person, that was enough for me. And I saw someone taking a photo of the flyer. It was the most heartwarming thing. And then a couple of weeks went by, and one of my classmates is doing her integration in Italy, and she asked me if I would be willing to tutor her because I speak Italian. So I was like, oh my God, amazing. Yes, I've been wanting a reason to, touch up and brush up on my Italian too, because I haven't used it in a lot of years. And, if you don't use it, you lose it. And I felt so inspired by her desire to learn in the middle of all these classes. She's only going to be at integration for 5 weeks. They speak English. There's no language requirement. But I found it so beautiful that she really was, wanting to try to learn things that would help her engage and connect with patients while she was there. So I think I did a session of that with her before the second little seed was planted, or maybe the third, maybe the flyers was the second, but I thought, oh my God, there is a Latinx nurses club on campus that I didn't know anything about. I knew it existed, but I was never a part of it or anything. Oh my God, I want to pitch an idea to them because I think that this would be really helpful. My idea was that the Latinx club could host, weekly, just round table something for students who would want to practice conversational, practical nursing intervention or nursing application conversations, just in a casual way, because there's a medical Spanish course that's offered, and they do a lot of the more, formal conjugating, learning body parts, all that kind of stuff. And I ran into a girl in my cohort who is so incredible. She's part of Latinx nursing club, and I told her the idea. It just felt like divine timing that I just ran into her right while I was having this idea. And she put me in the group chat. I pitched my idea. Because of that, I was then part of that group chat, and I learned about a volunteering event that was going to happen with another club on campus that's men in nursing. They were hosting this community health event program at a local church for community members, and they were looking for volunteers. And I think Latinx Club specifically was kind of co-invited to participate to offer like translation and also just like some of the health stuff, like taking vitals, doing blood glucose, whatever, all that stuff, like finger pricks. So I was like, oh my God, I definitely want to volunteer. This is amazing. I just, all these things happened in like a domino effect. And I felt so inspired and like invigorated. And of course we had an exam. That was Saturday. We had an exam on Monday and then on Tuesday. And I was feeling pretty stressed, again, behind on studying. But I knew again in my heart that this was something that I really wanted to do and really needed to do, because doing the work as opposed to just preaching about it is so important. And I knew that the people hosting it and the people that were going to be there are just so wonderful and people that I want to connect more with in my program. So that event was incredible. I felt so connected with my community. I felt so connected with people in my cohort who put together this event. I felt so connected with myself. I think I could get emotional just thinking about it. I felt so connected to my people, you know. Suddenly, I started to notice that there was a bit of a shift, just like naturally, in my attitude towards studying and acing everything, because I started realizing that my value isn't, based on my grades, and it's more based on what I can bring to the community and what I can bring as a future nurse. And that is not to say, again, that pathophysiology and pharmacology and all the things aren't important. Of course, they're very important, but it makes no sense to know everything perfectly and have the perfect grade and then not know how to interact with people or not engage with the community, because that's really what nursing is all about. And when I was saying that it's about accumulating evidence and proof, or gathering, I should say, I did just fine on my exams. Were they the highest grades I've ever gotten? No. Were they still A's? Yes, for the most part. There's one that wasn't, but it's okay. It just reaffirmed to me that actually I don't need to be this academically perfect student to bring value. The value that we all have is inherent to who we are, inherent to the experiences that we bring to the table, and to the compassion and advocacy and patient-centered mindset that we can bring to the field. I think looking back, I subconsciously started school with a closed attitude of I'm coming, getting my education, getting my degree, and I'm bouncing. And I guess I didn't realize that was my outlook on starting this program. And it probably has to do a lot with the fact that I get I tend to shy away from social interactions because I just feel a lot of anxiety and I get really awkward. So that was probably a big part in why I didn't really want to be part of clubs. I also really made myself believe that there was absolutely no time for that kind of thing, and I just needed to study, which was very much part of, the reinforcing my belief that I need to spend all waking hours studying so that I can prove myself. And I really wish that I would have gotten involved with clubs earlier on. It's okay. I have found these outlets, third semester, 3 semesters in. And so I'm happy about it, but I do wish, looking back, that I could have had these systems in place from the first day, really. And not to mention, these are things that you can put in your resume. These are things that can get you connected to different, scholarships or networking opportunities, so I'm not usually a hustler in that way. I like to do things out of heart, not out of mind logical whatever. But it is true as well that like the world that we live in and the systems that we kind of abide by do, like prioritize or do place emphasis on the importance of like being well connected and stuff. For anyone who does care about the networking and the connection side of things, I guess I urge you to find clubs that speak to you, that you want to be involved in, because if you get a leadership position in a club, like a secretary or president or vice president or whatever, I don't really fully know what the roles are, it can look really good for anything that you apply to, whether you want to be a student ambassador for the next cohort, or whether you want to be the commencement speaker at your graduation, or whatever thing you might want to apply for. You can really leverage that. I think I've spoken for way too long now, but I just wanted to share that I have found it so liberating in a lot of ways, and uplifting to find these different avenues. Thanks for watching. As always, if you have any questions, let me know. I'm happy to answer them. I will next be making a video about maybe what to buy before starting the program, and then also one maybe doing a little dorm tour and speaking about the different housing options for on-campus housing. And yeah, let me know if there's anything else you're interested in. I will see you in my next one. Bye. I'm not fully sure how to go about hanging these flyers. Obviously it's going to be wet and snowy out, so if I just put paper out there, it'll get ruined. I have these binder bags, if that's what they're called. I have no idea what they're called. These like plastic sheets. And so I'm doing English, Spanish, and I'm thinking with the ones that I do front and back for, all of these, maybe I can like thread a string through here and tie it onto something and just like tape the top off so it doesn't get wet, and then people can flip and access the information in the language that they feel most comfortable. I feel like, is this even useful? Is this even gonna help? And so much of it is preventable, and I think had these patients only known what to do, they might not be in this situation. I just have to remind myself that even if it helps one single person, that's one less person suffering in the hospital the way that I see these patients. That's one less family that has to feel heartbroken about their loved one, and that makes a big difference. So you don't even have to be a nurse to tape some educational flyers around your neighborhood. I feel a little bit overwhelmed because it's already snowing a little bit, and it just feels like race against time, and I'm just thinking about all of the places that I could tape things onto, and it'll just take hours and hours for me to actually get everywhere, and I have so much to do for school, so it's kind of balancing that out, right? Like of doing something that feels right in my heart and also keeping up with school.